Just so cool to see one of these F1 GTR short tail, the car that returned to Le Mans for McLaren and won in 1995. Not this specific car, of course, but the GTRs. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We're out here today in Hinsdale, Illinois for another phenomenal Cars and Coffee. There's some really hot cars, hypercars and exotics and Porsches and all sorts of cool stuff that has showed up today. So we're gonna do the usual, walk the lot and see what we find. Enjoy. And right off the bat, we have this massive lineup of German cars. So there's naturally a ton of different Porsches to highlight. First being this 964 Turbo with the classic whale tail spoiler, white turbo wheels. I believe this is Guards red. Really nice. Next to a 993 GT3 Touring from 992 generation, GT2 RS in the classic colorway. Looks like a Weissach package car as well. More cars rolling in, another GT3 Touring from 991 actually. Another GT2 RS. GT3s, a GT3 and a GT3 RS, 991.1. Python Green GT3. And then we move into some BMWs. More Porsches over here. We have some GT4 RS. There's a 992 GT3 RS, the new model, with all its insane aero work, DRS system at the back. Wow, that is pretty menacing in person. Look at all the aero fins there at the front. Just ridiculous rear wing for an RS. It's basically right off the RSR race cars. There's GT4 RS, 992 Turbo S, possibly one of the best daily driving supercars out there. Let's see what else. This looks like a new Cayenne Turbo GT from the Napleton Group here in Chicago. They got the blue finish on the wheels there. GT3 with a wrap. Another GT2 RS and racing yellow GT3 RS 991.2. Love that spec. Next to a, I think signal yellow 996 GT3. It's been a while since I've seen one of these. The first GT3 in Porsche's history, and also the first GT3 RS, except that was only sold in Europe. And we've got some cool exotics. As usual, a lineup of various specs of Huracan STOs, followed by some special Ferraris over here. We got a Testarossa 456 GT. Don't see those too often. That's interesting. Got that blue 812 GTS. I think that's the same one we saw in Lyle a couple weeks ago. Along with this F12. More 812 GTSs here. This yellow one is pretty cool with the tricolore stripe going down the center. Yellow stitching and seat accents throughout. 488 Pista Spider. And a 296 GTB with some contrasting decals and color specs as well. That's really nice. 488 Spider, Pista Spider specifically. This is one of my favorites. I love the aero treatment here at the front with that like S-duct design that goes right down to the floor. It's always a toss-up for me between this and the 458 Speciale Parta. Two very special track-oriented Ferrari Spiders from the V8 line. You just have to decide between naturally aspirated V8 and the twin-turbo V8 in this pista model from the 488. That is a beautiful spec. Just love the treatment on this all around. More of this 812 GTS next to a 430 Spider. And an F8 Spider here. Don't want to see the F8 too much because it had such a short production run before, relatively speaking, before the 296 came in. But I actually think they did a pretty good job of evolving the design of the 458 to the 488 and then to this, the F8. Rear end specifically I love, and on a coupe, it's got such a nice design with the rear glass. But the Spider, of course, is just as beautiful. And then we have a blue SVJ Roadster over here. I think I've seen this one running around Chicago before as well. Yeah, it's from Chicago Motor Cars. That's why. It's crazy to see all the original Audi and Volkswagen Group switchgear inside these Aventadors from so many years back, making its way all the way through 2023 with the long Aventador production run. Finally now making way for the Revuelto, of course. All right, so we're crossing the tracks into the hypercar territory of the show, as you can see, with the entrance of an McLaren F1 GTR, followed by a McLaren Sabre, and an Artura. But those are some special McLarens right there. They don't need much introduction. Sabre, I believe, is 1 of 15. Special rebodied version of the Senna, basically. Wow. Some crazy cars over here. We're gonna have to wait for the crowd to go chase after some of these, but you can see we already have a Carrera GT right here, front and center. And 812 Competizione. That's pretty cool. I haven't seen one of these yet. The track, the end of the run track version of the 812 lineup before the 12 Cylindri comes in to replace it. That is awesome. I love the 812 in general and have yet to see one of these in person. Let's get a closer look. All the aero work and carbon fiber and the Italian flag scheme running down the center as well. The Pirelli red, the lines on the red Pirelli tires there. Tricolore or Scuderia shield painted on. That's pretty cool. I love this. And oh wow, something equally as special next to it, a Ford GTX-1, the Roadster or almost like Speedster variant of the Ford GT, the original Ford GT supercar from 2004, in a very classic color scheme with the original wheels. Love the like double bubble hump design here behind the canopy. We have a huge crowd gathering around the F1 GTR, but let's just keep going down the line here. Another original GT, the coupe, of course, followed by the new GT, also from Chicago Motor Cars. Ferrari SF90 Spider, 812 GTS, love that green. Don't think I have seen that shade on a modern Ferrari at any point. Definitely not this car. We've got this Ford GT, I think we saw that at Lyle Car Show a couple weeks ago as well, with the HREs lowered, a bunch of blacked out modifications on it. Another 812 GTS, purple. I think we've seen this one before too. There's the lineup here, and let's take a quick sneak peek. These are some cool cars here. These are the Lancia EVO37s built by Kimera, I believe is the brand, at least for this blue one. They do some really insane restomod creations of the classic Lancia 037 rally car, the Stradale, for the street version, of course. I saw this one at the Chicago Auto Show, but they've got another one back here in the classic Martini livery scheme. I don't know if that one's also from Kimera, might be a different firm. They look about the same, but these are super cool. I love this design, and you can see it's just fully custom throughout. the interior and everything. We'll get a closer look at these a little later when the crowd dies down, but look at that, the custom sculpted rear spoiler, ducktail design. You can get a look at the mid-engine. F1 GTR lurking behind it there. Let's keep going down the lineup. This is one of my favorite color schemes here on the 997.1 GT3 RS, the black with the orange wheels and decals. You see the orange with black decals a lot more frequently, relatively speaking, but I don't know if I've ever seen this one in person. It's got a lot of different colors going on there with the yellow calipers too, and yellow center stripe on the steering wheel. This is just such a good generation of the GT and RS cars here. 997.1, so when they first started bringing the RS cars into the North American market. Here's that Artura that pulled in, next to some 570 series cars with some custom modifications and decals. But we're gonna have to go try to get a closer look at those other exotics that pulled in alongside the GTR, because those are rare opportunities to see those special cars. All right, here we are up close with the Sabre, the rear end of the McLaren Sabre. Look at that wild design, almost looks like a Daytona prototype or LMP car with this aero treatment. The thin taillights that are embedded within the winglets here vertically. Love that touch. And look at all these like little perforations here for the rear wheel arch to relieve air pressure. Beautifully integrated into this entire rear clamshell. And the dual exhaust hiding in the center there of the fascia. And more heat extraction holes there on the engine cover in between that shark fin. You can see 13 printed there on the carbon fiber aeroplane. I believe that denotes that it's the 13th out of the 15 Sabres produced. You can see it's got sort of like Senna-style windows here where they only open up a little bit, partially through the window design itself. Just a quick closer look at the F1 GTR. This is quite a GT3 Touring right here. 992 GT3 Touring in like, I don't know, pistachio green. I don't know what PTS color this is, but love it. Look at the interior though. Look at those seats. Gray leather with all those contrasting designs inside. The yellow contrast around the gauge and steering wheel. You got this like Mobile One logo here on the fender. Yellow calipers. That is nice. Super vibrant, just my style. Maybe not everybody's, but that is a beautiful spec next to that Bahama yellow GT3 I keep seeing around Chicago. But I don't think I've seen this green GT3 Touring before. Super cool. I have to stop and look at one of my favorite AMG products from the last 10 years, CLS 63S AMG. The CLS class originally coming out around 2005. I always loved the late model, second generation, when they did the facelift in 2015. This is not a facelift car, but still an awesome car that's a little overlooked in my opinion. It's basically the sleeker, more stylish version of the E63 AMG. But I just love the look of this car, and would seriously love to own one day. Probably the facelift model, like I mentioned. This is probably like a 2013 or 14. It's an S, which was sort of the beginning of Mercedes phasing out the P30 performance package options and into being just the S model AMGs. And then they facelifted this car in 2015 for the last 3 model years, and it looked a little bit better in my opinion. This one definitely doesn't look bad. A lot of people love the second gen overall, but by the time the facelift came out, the design was just tweaked and modernized a bit. Along with the tech, they started including Apple CarPlay, among other changes. And of course, the powertrain refinement over the years. The only thing that worries me about this car is the rear air suspension. But otherwise, I think it would be such a great car to own. I used to drive some of these when I worked at Benz dealers back in the day. We'd get them out on the highway. Just love how they rode.
Oh, yeah.
All right, everyone, hope you enjoyed the show today here in Hinsdale, Illinois for the BURDI Cars and Coffee show. Some incredible vehicles turned up, as you saw, from the F1 GTR, the Kimera EVOs, lots of special Ferraris and Porsches, Ford GTX1. So phenomenal show. We'll definitely be coming back next year to see what they bring. And thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.